Hi, so today we'll be evaluating recovery planning in Australia and seeing if what has been done has been worth the money that the Australian government has invested in it. Conservation in Australia falls into two basic categories: the establishment and expansion of protected areas, and recovery planning and resource management. Australia lists species conservation status under the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act of 1999. And a species is classed as recovered if it is lowered from the status of vulnerable according to this Act. Unfortunately, there are no real clear guidelines to determine if a species is recovered or is recovering. The Australian government has spent quite a bit on conservation, with $2.5 billion spent between 1992 and 2008, and nearly $17 million spent on recovery plans alone since the establishment of the EPBC Act in 1999. However, only 10% of Australia's conservation budget has been spent on expanding protected areas, and funding is still considered to be low. In Australia, there has been a marked shift from species-specific to regional recovery plans. There is also considerable bias in these plans favouring charismatic species and leaving many taxonomic groups unrepresented. According to a study by Bottrell et al. In 2011, investigating the difference in decline or improvement in conservation status of species with or without recovery plans, there was no significant differences in the change of status between species with or without plans, nor did such plans show any short-term or 10-year impacts on species recovery. Recovery plans have also been proven to be difficult to evaluate with little baseline data. Protected areas, however, have proven to have beneficial effects on species. For example, marine reserves have greater species richness than non-reserves. A study by Taylor et al. In 2011 examining distribution overlaps with protected areas and recovery activities showed that threatened species do best when they are in protected areas and have recovery plans. Unfortunately, however, the expansion of these areas has been too slow to counter many losses of many species. Overall, money spent on recovery planning in Australia has not been well invested. I would recommend greater investments in protected areas with more comprehensive recovery actions and better clarification of species status. I would also keep recovery plans for species and areas of the highest priority and focus on monitoring and threat abatement. Thank you for listening.